Good evening. Welcome to this edition of DeFacto Review, one of the story shaping program in Mongolia. Here with us, our commentator, economist, and columnist Jargal, founder of DeFacto.
Good evening.
Good evening. And my name is Erdenes, and we're live on Facebook and VTV and Twitter, hashtag Jargal DeFacto, and coming up on the program. Prime Minister's visit to Japan. Erdenes Tolgoi IPO. Around $4 million US. Let's start our first topic. The Prime Minister of Mongolia paid an official visit to Japan December 12th to 15th. This is the third foreign visit since he took in office, and you accompanied to the Prime Minister. And what talks were discussed during this visit?
Yes, we had. I was in the media delegation of the delegation, the media team of the delegations. Prime Minister were for 3 days in Japan, as you have said, on those days. And what was specific about this trip was because we have a strategic partnership with Japan, meaning that we are partners, strategic partners. They discuss the issues, economic, political, and international relations. They must say important issues. So this time again, Prime Minister visited, discussed these issues with the Prime Minister Abe, and also paid several visits, important visits to other organizations, and was at 2 business meetings. And Japanese-Mongolian relationship is so important for Mongolia, in particular in the economic field. In spite of these 2 different sizes, it is very important for us because we cannot underestimate or undervalue the help and the credits the Japanese people, government had helped to Mongolia for the last 28 years. And on economic, on international issues, Mongolia is also an important partner for Japan in their discussions with North Korea, because we have diplomatic relations with that country for many years. And we were instrumental in certain discussions of North Korea and Japan on the issue of kidnapping and several other issues. So this time, this visit was one of those strategic updating visits. That's why it's important. Also, the Prime Minister not only visited Japan, also last day he went to Hokkaido, where he had met a well-known Mongolian farmer who is doing good business in Japan. And because Hokkaido is relatively close to our climate conditions, the way how the farm can be effective, the Prime Minister could see that, and I think it's a good example for Mongolians to follow.
Okay. And Mongolia and Japan signed an economic agreement in June of 2016. Did they discuss whether implementing the EPA?
We keep implementing this free trade agreement with Japan, which is only called this Economic Partnership Agreement. And it's the first free trade agreement of Mongolia with any other countries. Japan is first, it's very important. And what happened? After a year of that free trade agreement, our trade volume had increased 10% up. And a year after, which is this year, by November this year, year-on-year basis back, it is increased for 50%. Why? Because our export had increased. Such items like cashmere, wool, and also very notably, there was a copper concentrate, which is good news. So, however, there is a big trade balance deficit between us, but things go up. That was the first thing. Second thing was, it turned out that several trade items, commodities, codes to be identified and mentioned in the agreement in a lot of details. Why? Because we have agreed on certain codes, say woolen products. but we didn't specify, or this is socks or it's carpet, because this specification is not there, because their trade system works like this. Those producers and exporters of those goods cannot benefit those discounts given by the contract. So that's some of the issues we have to work on again. The third, though our trade balance is always with deficit so far, before it was 90-10, Japanese import is 90 times, then the 10-hour export rate. And then now it is becoming 70-30. Although that's good trend. But however, we keep buying a lot of old cars, particularly this Prius, this hybrid car, which completely violating our right-hand rule of traffic movement in Mongolia, to such extent that it is causing accidents, etc. So this is the issue we need to address under this agreement. Not to this agreement itself, but that's the result of the agreement we need to reconsider. Maybe we need to increase taxes on these old cars, probably, etc. This is secondary method, measurement after the agreement.
And during the visit, the government of Mongolia is launching the Trade Representative Office of Mongolia in Japan. What is the benefit of that? And will you please brief on the trade turnover between the two countries?
Yes, there was an announcement that Mongolia is going to open trade rep office in Japan in Tokyo. There is several reasons for that, because of the increasing trade volume. But however, trade volume compared with the opportunities we have is quite modest. It's about less than $500 million, or less than $500 million. But it's quite modest for what we could do, and plus there is a new trend. For example, many Mongolian young engineers work and study in Japan. Many young Mongolians are writing here software and also algorithm for artificial intelligence, which is promising to be good new. Not only diversification of our economy, but it is a good way of exporting. It's borderless business, IT business. And they go not only Japan, but also to Southeast Asia. This kind of new trend is there. So this is not that hard physical touch items, but however, it is intellectual items which Mongolians can benefit in. I include fintech, for example, IT engineering, etc. And also there is a 2,500 students, Mongolian students studying in Japan, which is per capita more than Americans, for example, or other countries. Secondly, we have around 9,000 Mongolians working there, total, including the students. And soon it will be increased. The other reason of opening trade offices, for example, this GBIC case, Japan Bank for International Cooperation, Mongolia had signed agreement for 8 billion yen, or around $80 million agreement of its credit line 5 years ago with that GBIC. But so far, we only 3-4 projects have done, and it's including Sumitomo sale of mining equipments of Komatsu to Mongolian company Hishigarvin, 2015. In 2016, there was Konica Minolta company who sold the printer machine to Mongolia, and also the Hanbank ATM machines were also taken under this loan. And the last one is 2016, the feasibility study of railway project from TT to east to the Zamingud to the Sanshan. That feasibility study was made under this money. Nevertheless, we have used only 20% of this $80 million. So for other Mongolian businesses that has connection with Japanese companies, they have a chance to have this money, cheaper money, compared to Mongolian, of course, loans. So that's the reason, a few reasons why we need a trade rep office in Tokyo.
Okay. Now, was there any specific talk about the new airport in Hundi?
Yes, that was the only, I think, the most important, very practical decisions the Prime Minister made with the Prime Minister Abe. It was mentioned in their statement, which they had held after the meeting, and in which, I mean, these two prime minister statements were very widely quoted in all major Japanese newspapers. And they were mentioning about this also, the airport. This airport, $580 million US, we borrowed 10 years ago. And now, by the way, it's a time to pay back after 10 years, and yet we have not finished the airport. Though airport building is operation, it's a construct already. And the highway to the airport from Ulaanbaatar is almost completed now. But the remaining and pending issue is operation management contract of this airport. Now, finally, they have agreed that for this Japanese company, Mitsubishi, Haneda, Narita, and JAL Lux, these four companies are all professionals of running airport, the famous airport Narita, Haneda. And these four companies will have for 15 years operating this new airport. Meanwhile, they will pay not only concession fee, but also dividend and also all taxes we have. So they hopefully after 15 years, at least some part of the $580 million US loan is paid, and then it will be transferred after to Mongolian management. Now it's 51% to 49% government and Japanese consortium of these companies. So what's going to happen is, according to the agreement, the statement, they will sign the agreement within January next year, after which it takes several months to prepare the airport for normal running, taking off, landing airplanes. It takes several international licenses, other things to be done on the spot. They will do it. And but our Prime Minister asked them if possible to open it by Nadam.
This Nadam.
The coming Nadam. If not, then they will do it in a couple months later on, I understood. But however, the issue is today this airport, already made airport, has already 200 staff, security, safety, heating, because it's a cold weather, they need to heat the airport. Altogether, we have monthly 1 billion tugri cost, which is too much, a lot for another 1 year to run. So two things. Mongolian government are not doing the things they have promised on time. And while we are talking, negotiating, whole 10 years passed away, and now we are already paying that loan, which is very unfortunate, which is a strong signal to the government to be more professional. That's how I found.
Okay. And then some Japanese provinces have established the sister city relationship with Mongolia. And how do you see that the advantage of the sister cities relationship?
I quite welcome, because for democratic countries in their relationship, particularly this international diplomatic relationships, not only the government or state, but the peoples to peoples relations, we call it peoples to peoples diplomacy, people's diplomacy, are sometimes more important. Because at the end, we talk about what the cooperation is about. It's increasing the living standard of the people. So when between these IMACs, for example, Tolgoi IMAC has that's a society relationship with Shikoka prefecture of Japan. I saw on the sport people visiting each other, students visiting each other, the children learning more. They have in summer camps within each other, which is a good. And also they learn more about the farming ways in those areas, the way how houses are heated. And I think it's a very efficient way of learning. Now, since Mongolia needs a lot to learn and to implement, and it's a much wider way, and it's more local benefit. Okay. That's why it's very important, I believe.
Okay, let's move on the next topic about the Erdenes Tavan Tolgoi IPO. Last July, the government had approved the Erdenes Tavan Tolgoi to sell up to the 30% of its share on the international and domestic market. Mr. Somya Bazar, Minister of Mining and Heavy Industry, was signed to carry out the IPO on the market within a year. And then he was given 180 days to do the preparation work. Given out the 180 days, almost running out, And so we Mongolians as a stakeholder and the government are expecting the reports and the process of the preparation work. Will you please share on your insights on that?
Yes, Erdenes Tavan Tolgoi to be public, selling up to 30%, as you said, in international market. They are more now identifying Hong Kong market as their prime target. A half year passed since that decision. I think there are professionals working and completing many works, but still at home they to do several things, still missing. And who owns the share of the Erdenes Mongol today? 64% owned by Erdenes Mongolia today, 20% by the certain political decisions of the parliament. Citizens have 14.5% of the share. Every citizen has 1,072 shares, and 0.5% share is owned by 64 economic entities in Mongolia. So out of those shares, 35 will be up to 30 will be sold on the international markets. First time this company made a profit last year, 2017, 461 billion tugrik. And this year they expect to make about 1.2 trillion tugrik sales, which is around $500 million, $500 million sales, if they will do it, because more or less they are doing. But however, all these informations are not very much posted on their website. And in the final presentation about the state of this IPO preparations will be presented next year at the parliament by the minister Somya Bazar. Of course, if the parliament is making their sessions, which is not happening, unfortunately, from the last week. The other thing was, I thought the management, in particular the board members of this Erdenes Tavan Tolgoi, which was before consisted 100% of Mongolians, state nominees, government people. Now they have attracted, out of 13, 4 independent board members are there. But I don't know what was the clear procedure of their selecting, whether they are selecting this, all of us, 2 million of us who owns this, each 1,072 shares. It is not clear, at least. Secondly, their photo is not even there on their website, so it's very...
No, not any information on their website, you mean?
Their names are there, but not photo. And there is no information about their financial situations.
The Erdenes Tavan Tolgoi IPO, which is the government of Mongolia and all citizens of Mongolia hold, is in process to be introduced to the market. The introducing IPO to the market is not an issue, but how do you see the public interest to buy it? Do you think more people are willing to buy it once it's on the market?
Well, at least they have recently announced that they made this company, closed company so far, at a certain point, which is not very clear. Why you would have closed for a while the company before it goes to open for IPO. They explain that this is for better protecting the values of the shares. Well, I understand, because if it is still open, but however, the people, they are afraid of people selling their shares, which will make down, if they start to all of them to sell shares, the price will go down. That's the argument. But however, because this 50% distributed to people were not for raising a fund, like any IPO aim is, purpose is to raise a fund. But this 15% was just given to people free of charge by the will and some creativity of our politicians. And it is very tough task for them to combine 14% being given free, the other percent should go up. It's not very easy, not at least traditional way of making IPO, one. And on the other side, investors' concern will be why you would buy only 30% of the state-owned a mining company in Mongolia. Meanwhile, Australia has no state-owned company in mining, for example. And when the state is there, 17% owning, it's very hard for the private industry investment to make on decisions. So it will be one of the concerns of the potential buyers of Erdenes Tavan Tolgoi shares.
You just say that the company had the major change to from the public to the closed company, which is the limited liability company. Is there any experience like this in the international market? And will you please explain this change of the company status? Is it the common way to protect its
No,
share
not at
value,
all,
or?
and it's a new way, as I just mentioned. They said they are protecting the values of the company from potential shareholders who will sell who has each 1,072 shares if they will start to sell, which is impossible because we don't have the document, we don't have all this registration at the stock exchange, so it will be hardly the reason for them to be a closed company, which they made, but time will show. And for any cases, they already should put on their website the full financial disclosure of the company. Once they want to sell it after, say, half a year from now. There should be a financial document including balance sheet for a couple of years in a row, income statement, and plus this cash flow statement. Without these three documents, which are not on their website up to date, and those documents should be also verified, audited by independent, internationally recognized companies. So they are missing the main documents that is important for IPO, and I hope they will do it now, and they will do it back in time. They should have it these last 5-6 years financial statement.
Okay. Since we talk about the Erdenes Tavan, let's just talk about quickly the railway story. Which on Friday, the Supreme Court has ruled to dismiss the case of $280 million because the case is not considered as a criminal case. But they borrowed the $280 million from the bond money to construct, they're supposed to construct a new railway, but there is no railway as we see. And what does that mean, and why this case was dismissed by the Supreme Court?
Very interesting. Last Friday at night, in the evening, they put the information after their court decisions on their website. But what they have informed us on their website is not very clear. In the first sentences, it says that there are 2 Korean citizens involved in these cases. The court decisions are not changed, they say. But now from the second sentence, they have changed. This man, Gu Dong-hyun, Korean citizens, he was found guilty, and the court suggested to have him certain penalty, which the Supreme Court considered and they regarded as having no criminal provisions in this case, criminal actions in this case, and he's now free. The second Korean man, who was supposed to have for embezzlement of the fund through his personal needs, he had prison terms and 40 million tourist penalty, which the Supreme Court, the prison terms, he was 515 days in the prison. They regarded that as the prison term. They have decreased his penalty from 40 million to 32 million only. So now question is arising, what happened with our money? $280 million US. Who's
responsible for
who's
that?
responsible for that? And the president current Tolgoi president company was involved in this business. There were several cases trying to ask him questions, etc. And later on, when he became president, this case was dismissed. But where is our money? That's the first question.
Where is our money and
Or
where
railway.
is the railway? Yeah, that's the question.
Which is not the case. So still people are wondering that what kind of decision is this? What happened? And also, does the rule of law functioning or valid for everybody, or somebody else, somebody has is above the rule of law? So that's the questions that we will discuss in our third topic, more details about another case of that.
Okay, moving out our next topic, it's about the 4 million US dollar case, which was brought by the Mr. Gumboldt. Recently, he mentioned that in a TV interview, the accuracy of the transferring money from their company account to the account of Tolgoi, who was the prosecutor general at that time. And then he claimed that he transferred $4 million. Why would Gumboldt bring this case, which was happened back in 2014? Why it's called 4 million USD case?
That time, 2014, that time Minister of Justice, Temujin, had published this information with the official copies of the transfer of money, 4 million US dollar in 2 pieces, to the account of the brother of that time general prosecutor Tolgoi. And then eventually the Tolgoi find it is a politically motivated attack on him, and he promised to make everything clear. Then what happened was there was no information anymore for the last 4 years, and nobody was talking about that, and now it's raising now. So first issue is, if the general prosecutor, former general prosecutor, got the money, he should declare what happened. If he did not, then this Mr. Gumboldt should be taken for court for saying lying, right? And it looks like not. And now people are demanding more clear picture of what has exactly happened. In this interview last Friday, Mr. Gumboldt, who is the head of the CEO of the Altın Dornot, said in the long interview, I saw the interview, he said that in Mongolia today, politicians are more richer than businessmen.
Yes.
The majority of the expensive houses in Daisen Valley are owned by politicians. And if you account their salary, and the highest ranking political officials, if he was working all his life, he was only able to buy medium size four-wheel drive. Which is quite logical, and it's the same question is coming from us as well. How come Mongolian politicians are becoming more richer than the business people? Because they are corrupt. And this is the clear example if Mr. Tolgoi will not prove otherwise. But unfortunately, this kind of cases are showing up, then eventually disappear. As a result, you asked me why it is happening now. Probably it's happening because it is related with all this political dysfunction today in Mongolia. And it's good, because now they will start to recover or disclose many criminal actions of each other. And that means democracy is working. That's what we want. We want to have clear government, and we want to have these politicians who were stalling our assets in this or that way, corrupt officials, they should have responsibility. Otherwise, we cannot make this country prosperous.
Okay, this concludes for this week, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for being with us, and we will see you next time at this time.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.